So what kind of banter have you got for me today?
I don't have much, man.
No banter?
No banter. We're going serious. I'm deflated this thing.
We're going serious.
Well, the topic's on submission to authorities. That's a big one. Were you a squeaky clean student, or were you one of those guys who got in trouble with authorities at school? What was it like?
So certainly not squeaky clean. It depends. I mean, I became a Christian in year 9 at high school. So high school is kind of divided across those two things.
Yeah.
I don't think, I certainly wasn't a squeaky clean kid by any stretch of the imagination. A real smart aleck, actually. I never got into masses of trouble. I kind of always around the edges.
Around the fringes?
Around the fringes, being a bit of a smart aleck. Cocky individual. Yeah. But I was a passionate evangelist from day one. And
that's great.
But then, bits and pieces needed to be worked out. And the change was kind of gradual. Well, I was really fortunate, a youth worker. Tim Wilson, if you're out there, he's a Prezi minister now.
Okay.
And he basically made me his full-time job. How have you felt? How did you feel when, Dan Andrews, as one of my members of my family, has started calling him Dictator Dan, and I'm not in that camp, but when Dan Andrews announced the roadmap, how did you feel?
Yeah, I think I felt a little deflated.
Yeah,
but which is kind of a word I've said a few times. But I think it's not as if I didn't expect it.
So you kind of expected,
you kind of
hope against hope.
Yeah, maybe because I think, or maybe I feel like there are other issues at play as well as what he's presenting.
Sure.
And so that might led me to think, it's hard. Like, it's hard for us, and it can be frustrating, if you kind of stick at this sort of schedule to get out of it.
Yeah.
But I guess, I'm a bit of an armchair expert, right? Like, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And you kind of trust in your authorities. Yeah. What about yourself, Nello?
Well, I mean, I was discouraged. I was deflated. I really love, because I don't particularly have a large family, and certainly don't have a large extended family. Very much church is my family, right? And so I really love being at church, and I love being there, and I love seeing how our church has grown and developed, and to think that all of this might have brought that work undone, which of course is thinking way too much from a human perspective. So it grieves me. I think there was a real sense of grief tied up in it. But let's think through, how are we going to respond? And you sent me an article earlier in the week from a guy called
Murray Campbell.
Good guy. I like Murray. And guys, try and look up his blog. He says some really helpful things. I actually think there were lots of things in that I found helpful, and it might be worth just chatting those through and sharing.
Yeah.
In the way that we talk to each other, right? Be careful of sounding like you're an expert. You read something online, so suddenly that makes you an expert, and we're dispensing all this advice to people. And we can unintentionally be dispensing stuff that's not all that helpful towards one another. So check your sources. Try not to be an expert with each other, the definitive voice on something, and just encourage each other, because it's really hard.
It is really hard. And I think for me, just a personal reflection there was, when I'm reading the paper on my phone or another device, it causes me a bit of anxiety. Like, and then I might sort of just say something to my wife Joy, and it can cause her anxiety. And now we're both anxious, and we're both not trusting God. We're not bringing it to prayer. We're not thinking. We're just kind of in our bubble and being stressed and wanting to vent our frustration. And so that's kind of unhealthy and unhelpful.
That'd be the first thing I'd say. Just be careful of how we're responding to each other. Sure. Try not to be, the expert. Check your sources, where they're coming from, because we don't want to necessarily be encouraging people with information that doesn't increase their trust in the Lord. Because ultimately, that's what we want to be doing. We want to be encouraging each other, whatever our view of what's going on, to continue to trust in the Lord.
Yeah. So let's say just kind of just push a little bit into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
But if you we have a freedom, right, to express kind of, we have different means to express how we're feeling, even to the local MP or whatever it might be. What are some ways that as Christians, if you do think that this is, and you've read up and you think this is the right path, or you think I really disagree, what are some ways in which, how can we express that? Should we express that or not? What do you reckon, Alex?
Well, I guess at one point, what I was thinking more about is how do we care for each other?
Yeah, okay.
So what I want to be doing is helping you trust in the Lord. That's got to be my goal. Right? Helping you, encouraging you to continue to trust in the Lord. So I guess what I was saying is that sometimes when we read stuff, they can fire us up or they can discourage us, or here's the quick answer or whatever. And, by me sharing that with you, by me articulating that to you, am I actually helping you trust in the Lord? And if the answer is, well, probably not, then probably not worth saying. In terms of how do we express our frustrations, hey, why don't we hang on to that until we talk about Romans 13?
Sure.
And I guess the other thing that came to mind is, for me, is just, and I know it sounds like a truism, but just be prayerful. Are we at home praying that the Lord brings this pandemic and the associated lockdowns to an end? Are we praying for the mums and dads at home who have kids? So, I've been trying to make it a deliberate point of my quiet time praying for you and Joy and the other families that have little ones and they can't get out and they're doing homeschooling at home. Just keep our brothers and sisters in prayer that the Lord would sustain them, give them wisdom to know how to get through this.
That just kind of makes me think of our first podcast on God's comfort.
Yeah.
It's so that we can comfort others, isn't it?
So that we can comfort others. Absolutely.
So prayer and I guess more practically calling people and just touching base. Yeah. What else do you reckon?
Well, I think this is the big one. And the more time goes on, the harder this becomes. Follow the rules. Yeah. I really do think Romans 13, 1-6, be in submission to your rulers, still applies. I know that's getting harder and harder to do the more we get frustrated. But, we as Christians ought to be known as people who are law-abiding.
Yeah. And
I don't have to understand all the laws. And to a certain extent, I don't even have to agree with the laws.
Yeah.
Right? But I still have to obey them. I mean, the only exception for that is if the laws are asking me to do something ungodly.
So why is it that we, I don't know if we want to read the passage a little, but
yeah, sure.
Why is it that we submit to authorities?
Why don't we read it and then we'll see if we can pick some things up from it. And so I've got it here, and I'm reading from the NIV. Everybody must submit himself to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, he who rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and those who do so will bring judgment on themselves. For rulers hold no terror for those who do right, but for those who do wrong. Do you want to be free from fear of the ones in authority? Then do what is right, and he will commend you, for he is God's servant to do you good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for he who does not bear the sword for nothing. He is God's servant, an agent of wrath, to bring punishment on wrongdoers. Therefore, it is necessary to submit to authorities, not only because of the possible punishment, but also because of conscience. Verse 6. This is why you pay taxes. Authorities are servants of God who give themselves to full-time governing. So there is a number of things there, aren't there?
Yeah, lots of things.
First and foremost, the reason we're meant to do it is because God tells us to. I mean, that's just basic to Bible-believing Christians, isn't it? That's right?
Yeah.
It's not, do this if you want to. It's a clear command. It's an imperative. right? Submit to your authority. So there's your first reason. But your second reason is because God's actually the one who established them. And so I love the way Paul goes.
Interesting your words to use there.
Yeah, if you arc up against these leaders, well, in the end, what you're doing is arcing up against God, who in his wisdom thought that they should be put there.
Yeah, it's interesting because he uses the phrase, is it servants of God?
Yeah, they're servants of God.
Oh,
that doesn't imply that they're Christians. It just implies they're doing God's will.
Yeah, okay. So we got to submit to them. God tells us to.
Yep.
And God's put them there, and they're God's servants, right?
Yep.
And so even if we don't actually like what they're doing, we've got to keep submitting because it's submitting to God.
That's right. That's right.
And
if you're not doing it, if you're not doing what they say, then you ought to be afraid because they're going to judge you. And Paul seems to go, that's right and good. And he's not writing about Christian authorities. Right? He's probably thinking about the authorities in Rome, to be quite honest. So then he goes, so you do this not only because you don't want to be punished, but also because you want to have a good conscience. That is, you know within yourself that you have obeyed God.
Yep. No, that's helpful for me, actually. Thanks for that. Cool.
So we've said, be careful in your response, be prayerful, follow the rules. And then the other thing is we can get so caught up with ourselves. What I can't do, what I can't do, what I can't do, what I'm not allowed to do, da-da-da-da. But think about your neighbours. These are wonderful opportunities for us to express Christian love to our family and friends and my neighbours. And so think about how you can love your neighbour, right? And so just thinking of two scriptures. Can I share them with you?
Yeah,
one,
would love to.
Psalm 130. Maybe if you've got it there.
Oh, I think that's the one I preached.
You did. That's why I'm getting you to speak on it, right? And just the first one, and then I've got one from 1 Peter that I want to read out.
Yeah. So as we finish, we're going to read these two psalms.
One
psalm and okay,
so 1 Peter, and we might pray, and that'll be it. So, do you want to just read the first couple of verses of Psalm 130? Thanks, mate.
Sure, mate. Psalm 130. Out of the depths I cry to you, Lord. Lord, hear my voice. Let your ears be attentive to my cry for mercy. If you, Lord, kept a record of sins, Lord, who could stand? But with you there is forgiveness, so that we can, with reverence, serve you. I wait for the Lord, my whole being waits, and in his word I put my hope. I wait for the Lord more than watchmen wait for the morning, more than watchmen wait for the morning. Israel, put your hope in the Lord, for with the Lord is unfailing love, and with him is full redemption. He himself will redeem Israel from all their sins.
It's a wonderful verse that, if nothing else, speaks of the emotional import of what we're meant to do, right?
Yeah.
Cry out to God in your distress. He hears it, and wait on him. Right? And we've not got a God who's distant from us. You know, we've got a God who, because of the Lord Jesus Christ, has made us co-heirs with him and sons of him, that we can say, Abba, Father. So cry out to him. Yeah. And then the other one I want to read, my eyes aren't very good, so I have to get a little bit closer, is from 1 Peter 6, 7 and 8. So 1 Peter 6, 7 and 8. In this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while you may have to suffer grief in all kinds of trials. These have come so that your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may be proved genuine, and may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed. Though you have not seen him, you love him. And even though you do not see him now, you believe and are filled with an inexpressible and glorious joy. The trials that we go through, even this trial, they're there in part to refine our faith. So that, I love the way the passage says it, so that it may be proven genuine. Not just to ourselves, but to those around us. And therefore, we're filled with this joy Because even though we haven't seen Jesus yet, we love him, but we know he's coming back. So I guess two things I'd say: trust God, cry out to him, and that recognize that nothing is an accident for him, and that perhaps part of the reason why he's allowing this to occur, even for us, is that our faith might be refined, sharpened, strengthened, and proven genuine. And that gives the suffering that we're going through and the difficulties we're going through a sense of meaning.
Totally. So comforting, those words.
Aren't they just?
They're just so awesome in this time when it's so difficult. It's God is refining us, and we ought to keep trusting him,
trusting him, keep loving Jesus,
keep bringing our prayers to him.
Yeah, even though you don't see him, you love him.
Fantastic, cool.
All right.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully our ramblings haven't put you to sleep. Yeah.
Hope you keep trusting the Lord. Keep bringing all things to him in prayer.
Yeah.
And keep following the rules. Keep going. Keep going. That's what I like to say.
Give each other good responses. Be prayerful. Follow the rules. Love your non-Christian friends. Try and avoid the crackpot theories and keep hanging on to Jesus.
Yeah.